Well, a majority of family members were inside that vehicle as the carjacker tried to take off with it. The father of that family shot and killed the suspect, and it was all captured on video.
No, don't do it! Don't do it!
Garland, Texas. A city of 250,000 people sitting 18 miles northeast of downtown Dallas. The kind of place where people buy their first homes, raise their children, and spend their Sundays the way most people do without incident. The 3rd of May, 2026, started exactly that way. At approximately 3:30 inches the afternoon, a father loaded his family into their white Chevrolet Impala and parked outside a convenience store near the intersection of Highway 66 and Dairy Road. 8 people total. His wife, 5 children, a baby. A regular Sunday in a regular parking lot, in a city where nothing like this was supposed to happen. But something was already moving toward them. Across the street at a nearby gas station, a man was behaving in a way that had already drawn attention, moving from car to car, pulling handles, using force. Multiple people noticed. At least one pulled out a phone to record it. Then the man stopped. He looked across the street, and he walked directly toward that white Impala. No hesitation, no change in pace, just a straight line from where he was standing to where that family was sitting. Within seconds, he was behind the wheel. The father was outside. The family was still inside. 60 seconds. That is how long this confrontation lasted, from the moment contact was made to the moment it ended. 60 seconds captured on surveillance cameras, confirmed by the Garland Police Department, and within 48 hours, reported by every major news network in the country. Millions of people watched the footage. Most saw the ending. Very few understand everything that led to it, everything the investigation uncovered, and the questions that to this day still have no public answer. That is what this documentary covers. This is a real case, a real family, real people whose lives changed permanently in the span of 60 seconds in a parking lot on an ordinary afternoon. Everything in this documentary comes directly from verified police statements, confirmed surveillance footage, on-record witness accounts, and reporting from credible outlets including Fox 4 Dallas, CBS Texas, and the Garland Police Department's own official public records. No speculation, no assumptions, only what is confirmed, only what is on record. If you are watching this and are not yet subscribed, do that right now, because when new confirmed information surfaces on this case, and there are still open questions investigators have not answered publicly, this channel will be the place that covers it in full. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. We read every single one. Now, let us get into it. Garland, Texas, is not a city that makes national headlines often. It is a working-class suburb where people clock in, raise their families, and build a life quietly. And on the afternoon of Sunday the 3rd of May, 2026, nothing about it suggested that was about to change. The father at the center of this case has not been publicly identified by name. That is not an oversight. In Texas, when a self-defense shooting occurs and investigators determine early on that criminal charges are unlikely, law enforcement routinely withholds the name of the individual who fired in order to protect them during the active phase of the investigation. Garland police followed that protocol here, and as of the latest available reporting, his name has not been released. What is known comes from the official police record, witness accounts given to local news stations, and the surveillance footage that Fox 4 Dallas obtained and broadcast. He was a father with his family beside him that afternoon, his wife, 5 children, a baby, 8 people total in a white Chevrolet Impala, parked at a convenience store lot near Highway 66 and Dairy Road. That vehicle, That specific white Chevrolet Impala becomes the center of everything that follows. The father was in the driver's seat. His family was settled around him. There was no reason at that moment to think the afternoon was anything other than what it looked like. But across the street, the surveillance cameras were already picking up something else entirely. His name was Jose Ramirez, 30 years old, a Mexican national, and according to the Garland Police Department, not a resident of Garland or anywhere else in the United States that investigators could confirm. Ramirez was identified through identification cards found on him at the scene. That is the documented method investigators use to put a name to the man at the center of this case, not a flagged arrest record. Not fingerprints on file, identification cards found on his person. That detail alone raises questions the investigation has not yet publicly answered. How long had Jose Ramirez been in the United States? Where did he enter the country? What brought him to Garland, Texas on that specific Sunday? As of the latest available reporting, none of those questions have been answered. Fox News reached out directly to the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, requesting his full immigration history. As of the time of this documentary, neither agency has issued a public response. No prior criminal record has been confirmed or denied publicly. No warrants were identified. No prior law enforcement contact in the United States has been established by any agency involved. What was he doing before the crash? Unknown. Where was he coming from? Unknown. Where was he going? Unknown. Those are not rhetorical questions. They are the actual state of the public record on Jose Ramirez as this documentary goes to air. What multiple witnesses did observe, and what police confirmed, is that by the time Ramirez abandoned his green vehicle at that gas station, his behavior had already become a clear cause for concern. He was not acting like someone shaken up from a collision. He was moving with intent, car to car, handle to handle, using physical force. Two explanations for that behavior have been discussed in public reporting. A possible mental health episode, possible substance impairment. Neither has been confirmed. No toxicology results have been publicly released. Those results can take weeks or months to process and are typically released as part of a final investigative report. What drove Jose Ramirez to do what he did on the 3rd of May 2026 remains one of the most significant open questions in this entire case. At approximately 3:30 p.m., the Garland Police Department received their first call. A green vehicle had struck two other cars on the roadway at Highway 66 and Dairy Road. Officers were dispatched as a standard traffic response. What changed everything happened while they were still en route. A second report came in. The driver of that green vehicle had not stayed at the scene. He had left his car, walked to a nearby gas station, and was actively attempting to force his way into multiple vehicles in that lot. That second report reframed the entire call. On the 4th of May, 2026, the Garland Police Department posted an official statement to their verified public Facebook page documenting the sequence of events. That statement confirmed the timeline, the location, and the 3 separate incidents investigators treated as a connected chain rather than isolated events. That 3-incident framework matters. It is the actual investigative structure that Lieutenant Pedro Barano used to build the department's formal assessment.
We received more information that the driver of that car had exited and immediately began physically trying to get into other vehicles in that park.
In his words, there were 3 incidents total. The crash, the gas station attempts, and what happened at the Impala. Investigators examined all 3 together. That combined framework is what shaped the legal conclusion at the end of this case. At the gas station, Ramirez moved from vehicle to vehicle. None of the attempts succeeded. So, he stopped. He looked across the street. And he crossed Highway 66 on foot toward the convenience store parking lot where that white Impala was sitting. Garland police were still not on scene. Tatiana Starks was at work that afternoon. She manages Garland, Smoke, and Vape, located in the shopping center near the intersection, close enough that when she heard the initial crash, she looked out and saw what was happening across the lot. What she saw made her reach for her phone immediately. From her position, she watched Ramirez move through the gas station, car to car. She could see something was wrong. In her own words to Fox 4 Dallas, she said she could definitely tell that he was not in his right state of mind. She kept recording. Then Ramirez turned and made direct eye contact with her. He began walking in her direction. At that moment, Tatiana Stark stopped recording. She did not approach. She did not engage. She put distance between herself and what was unfolding and stayed there. That decision kept her from becoming part of this case in a very different way. The footage she captured before she stepped back became part of the documented public record, shared publicly, and circulated across major news platforms as evidence of what Ramirez was doing in the minutes before he crossed that street. Taylor Stanfield, a resident who has lived in the area for 13 years, witnessed the aftermath. Speaking to CBS Texas, he described the situation as too close to home and said it was definitely very concerning. His reaction represents what the broader Garland community felt watching this unfold in their neighborhood on an ordinary Sunday afternoon. At 3:30 p.m., Jose Ramirez entered the convenience store parking lot. Surveillance cameras mounted on a nearby business recorded what followed. That footage was obtained by Fox 4 Dallas and confirmed as authentic by the Garland Police Department. It became the primary visual record of the confrontation and the central piece of evidence in the investigation. The footage shows Ramirez walking directly to the driver's side of the white Chevrolet Impala. He moved without hesitation and appeared to raise his arm as he reached the vehicle. The father exited the car. What followed was a physical struggle for control of that vehicle. Ramirez forced his way into the driver's seat, physically pulling the father from the seat as he pushed his way inside. Inside that vehicle, at that moment, were 2 adult women and 5 children, including a baby. Ramirez then pulled the car doors closed. He was now in the driver's seat with family members still inside. During the struggle, a young child was seen in the footage running from the rear of the vehicle. Other family members moved to exit through the available doors. The physical confrontation lasted approximately 1 full minute. Throughout that entire 60 seconds, according to the footage and the police record, the father was physically engaged, working to resolve the situation without reaching for the firearm he was legally carrying. When he did draw his weapon, Ramirez did not stop. The father fired from outside the vehicle near the passenger side. Investigators confirmed he fired more than 10 rounds. Ramirez was struck by more than one. Paramedics responded and transported Jose Ramirez to a local hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Every member of that family, all 8 of them, walked away from that parking lot without a single physical injury. The father remained at the scene. He cooperated immediately with responding officers and turned over his firearm voluntarily. That act of cooperation was documented and factored directly into how investigators assessed the situation. Lieutenant Pedro Barano confirmed the 3-incident framework as the structure used to evaluate everything. His words to CBS Texas were that police had to look at the totality of the circumstances and that there were 3 incidents total. On the question of charges, his statement was direct. It seemed to be self-defense, and it kind of all happened really fast. The Garland Police Department's official statement posted, "The 4th of May, 2026 confirmed the driver remained at the scene, was cooperative with investigators, and that no charges had been filed." Investigators confirmed what was found on Ramirez and what was not. No weapon was recovered on his person. That became one of the most discussed details publicly. But the police record also makes clear the father had no way of knowing that in the moment he could not search Ramirez mid-confrontation. What he could observe was the full chain of behavior. The crash, the gas station attempts, the forced entry, the struggle, and the continued resistance even after a firearm was drawn. Ramirez was identified through identification cards found on him. 30 years old, Mexican national, not a U.S. citizen, not a Garland resident. Autopsy and toxicology findings. Standard components of any self-defense investigation in Texas have not been publicly released as of the time of this documentary. The Dallas County District Attorney's Office has issued no public statement on this case. That silence, alongside the police department's self-defense determination, confirms that no prosecution is being pursued. The investigation into who Jose Ramirez was and what preceded the crash remains ongoing. To understand why this father faces no criminal liability, you need to understand 3 areas of Texas law in plain terms. First, constitutional carry. Enacted in 2021, most adults in Texas may carry a firearm without a license or permit. The father's possession of a legally owned handgun that afternoon was entirely within his rights before a single event in that parking lot occurred. Second, stand your ground. On the books in Texas since 2007. This law removes the legal requirement to retreat before using force when a person is in a location they have a lawful right to occupy and reasonably believes force is necessary to protect themselves or another from an immediate threat. The father had every legal right to be in that parking lot. His family was inside that vehicle. Third, the castle doctrine. In Texas, this extends beyond the home to include a person's vehicle. When Ramirez forced his way into that Impala with the family inside, he crossed a specific legal threshold that fundamentally changed the father's right to respond. Justification for the use of force under Texas law is determined by what a person could reasonably perceive in the moment, not what investigators find afterward. The father could not pause the confrontation to search Ramirez. What he could observe was a man who had crashed into 2 vehicles, attempted to forcibly take multiple cars, physically overpowered him for the driver's seat, closed himself inside with the family, and continued to resist even after a firearm was present. Under those observable facts, Texas law is clear. This case will not go to trial. The self-defense determination by Garland Police closes the criminal chapter, permanently barring significant new evidence. That is the current documented legal status of this matter. Within 48 hours, this case had gone fully national. It broke as a First on Fox exclusive before spreading across every major outlet in the country. The surveillance footage circulated across platforms and generated millions of views within days. And almost immediately, 2 distinct public debates emerged. The first was the self-defense debate. Those who questioned the shooting pointed to the fact that Ramirez was unarmed. Those who supported the father pointed to what he could actually observe in real time: repeated force, a family still in the vehicle, and continued resistance after a firearm was drawn. The legal answer is settled. The public debate continues. The second debate was the immigration question. When investigators confirmed Ramirez was in the United States without legal status, that detail drove much of the national conversation. DHS and ICE were contacted for comment. Neither has responded publicly. His entry point, entry date, and full circumstances in the United States remain unknown in the public record. This documentary reports verified facts. Both debates are part of the documented public record of this case, and both are worth understanding to have the full picture. Here is a question for the comments. Setting aside every political debate based purely on what that father could observe in that parking lot in real time, do you believe he made the only decision available to him in that moment? Drop your answer below. The criminal side of this case is resolved, but there is one reality this father carries forward that has received almost no coverage. In the United States, civil law operates on a completely separate track from criminal law. The family of a person killed in a self-defense incident retains the legal right to pursue a wrongful death civil lawsuit, regardless of how the criminal case concluded. That right exists even when law enforcement has publicly confirmed self-defense, and even when no charges were filed. As of the time of this documentary, no wrongful death civil suit has been publicly filed or confirmed in connection with this case. But the possibility exists, and it is a possibility this father will live with going forward. A civil case, even one that is ultimately unsuccessful, carries real costs, legal fees, time, personal pressure that can stretch across years. None of that changes the criminal outcome. The two tracks run independently. This is not unique to this case. It applies to any person who uses a legally owned firearm in a self-defense situation anywhere in the United States. Understanding that distinction is part of understanding the full picture of where this father stands today. On the 3rd of May 2026, a father parked his white Chevrolet Impala in Garland, Texas, with his family around him. He was not looking for what happened. Nothing about that afternoon gave him any reason to expect it. What followed was investigated by police, assessed under the legal framework of the state of Texas, and determined to be an act of self-defense. No charges were filed. No prosecution is being pursued. Jose Ramirez, 30 years old, a Mexican national, initiated the confrontation. His background, his reason for being in Garland, and what drove his behavior that afternoon remain open questions without public answers. Toxicology results have not been released. The full investigative report has not been made public. DHS and ICE have not responded to information requests. This investigation is ongoing. When new confirmed information enters the public record, this channel will cover it completely. Every verified update, every documented development. If you are not yet subscribed, now is the time. Share this documentary with someone who only saw the headline. Like the video so others can find the full picture. And the question from the last chapter still stands in the comments. 8 people went home that afternoon. That is the fact this case begins and ends with.